Good morning again, folks. As you probably realize, I don't know what I'm going to say till I fire this thing up, so I surprise myself sometimes. This time I'm going to introduce a very delicate subject. My state does not allow me to call myself a Caucasian. It only allows me to call myself white, which I consider kind of insulting, and I consider it a racist term. I think Caucasian or Caucasoid are those terms are far more respectful and accurate. Blacks wanted to be called blacks at one time, and so to respect them, that's what we used. The original term was Negroes or Negroid. Nothing's wrong with using the proper, accurate terms, I don't think. Anyway, I myself have about a 16th of Micmac Indian in me, which is a tribe that has ceased to exist for a long time. And when I was studying family systems, family therapy, I read a book that talked about, our heritage, and it was a book that basically pointed out that there was so much diversity among Europeans, people of European descent, Caucasoids, Caucasians, and that we had lost it. We had forgotten about it. I mean, those traditions are so rich. There's so much diversity there, and yet we're told, we're told it doesn't matter. It's all the same thing. It's just, pasty white guys. But yet, the colorfulness, I mean, the difference between the people as far as skin tone, size, color of hair, color of eyes, the traditions, the languages, the morals and mores, the religions. There's just a tremendous diversity, a real wealth, true richness, and we neglect that. We neglect to study our own roots. So basically, I want to give you a simple lesson today, and I'm going to ask you a question. And, please don't take offense at this, but do you know why we are called Caucasians? How do we come to be called Caucasoids? Why are we called Caucasians? Certainly there's no continent known as Caucasia, Well, I'm going to tell you. We're named after the Caucasus Mountain Range. The Caucasus Mountain Range runs between, I don't know if I can get this right, the Black Sea on one side, and I can't remember the name of the other one. I want to say Caspian, but I think that's right. Runs between the two seas up at an angle. So it goes if you're going from east to west as the world turns, it goes a little bit north at an angle. So it goes about west northwest, if you will. So it's just about like that. That's the Caucasus Mountains, and we were called Caucasians, named after the Caucasus Mountains. Generally speaking, our ancestors, our grandfathers, grandmothers, crossed the Caucasus Mountain Range in 3 giant migrations. Now, not everybody came to the Caucasus Mountains. Some went around the Caucasus Mountains, and some went by boats. But for the most part, generally speaking, we went across the Darryl Pass, Darryl Pass, in about 622 BC. So 622 years before Christ, there were 3 giant migrations. And we went through the Darryl Pass, which is about 2/3 the way up that whole mountain range, at an elevation of about 13,300 feet. So that probably was only passable in the summer, maybe spring, maybe fall, but in the summertime. And there is, on that pass, chiseled in rock and stone, in Paleo Hebrew, is the saying, "The gates of Israel." Now, I don't have a picture of that. I've never seen a picture of that, but I would love to see a picture of that. If anybody of you out there is close to the gates of Israel, I'd like to see the evidence of that. There's a wonderful book by Reed Benson called The Anglo-Israelite Thesis. It's by Reed Benson. The book is impeccably written. I'm an English major. I found only 2 things that I took qualms with, and they actually were proper English. There wasn't another mistake in the whole book. And then as I thought about it and looked at those, I realized that, we could say this is breaking the rules a little bit, but it works. And it's actually proper English. It's just his wife helped him with this, and I'm pretty sure her English is probably better than mine. Okay, I got the English degree because I was deficient in English. I only had a 450 score in English, so I majored in English, and I didn't do that well. I got B's, but I needed to balance myself. I needed to learn how to read, and it didn't happen until college. Well, I could read, but I had some problems reading. Anyway, buy his book off Amazon. I was getting it a while back for $13, I think even $10 a copy. It's an excellent book. It should be a history book. I think it's written so that a 7th grader could handle it, 9th grader could handle it, no problems at all. Well, maybe not these days. You might have to be in college to be able to read something like that. It's not a college book at all. It's got pictures in it on the sides of it, if you will, so that the text is broken up a lot like the history books that I remember in school a long time ago. It will explain quite a bit, and it even discusses the myth, if you will, of a princess that was in the Darrell Pass, lived up there, apparently had a castle up there, if you will, and she was noted by name, and I don't remember the name. I don't have the book here; it's in storage. She was noted as beheading a particularly famous king. Now, whether she did it herself or one of the soldiers that she led did it, that's another matter. That would be a good one for you budding historians to discover. So generally speaking, the European peoples burst upon the scenes about 622 BC into Europe and into the rest of the world. And so that's why we're called Caucasians. Now, I'm going to tell you why I think you're not allowed to call yourself a Caucasian for the purposes of identification. You have to call yourself white. I think that's because they're racist, perhaps, but that's not the real deal. The real deal is this. If you realized you're named after the Caucasus Mountains, the next question, the next logical question is, well, where did we come from before then? Before we crossed the Caucasus Mountain range into Europe, where did we come from? I'm going to tell you this is in the Bible pretty direct. Old Testament history is in there very well. We are from the northern tribes of Israel. The lost tribes of Israel, not lost to Yahweh, lost to ourselves, forgotten, we've forgotten. And it was said that we would suffer the suffering of Manasseh. We would have problems with remembering. So that was part of the curse that we were to have. And the other was that we would no longer be called after Israel, but after our father. Who was Israel's father? Isaac. So we were known as Isaac's sons, Saxons. So the Saxons are descendants of Israel, but were called after his father, Isaac. So they're our grandfathers. They don't want you to know the truth because the evil ones are running the planet trying to pretend they're the real deal, and they're not. So whenever you read that about Gentiles, keep this in mind. What is a Latin term doing in a Greek Bible? or doing in a Hebrew Bible or Aramaic Bible. Those are the three languages of the Bible, and we can argue about the Greek, by the way. I believe the New Testament was written in Aramaic. We don't have good data on it. If you want to be a historian or Bible scholar, you got some work for you right there. Make yourself famous, research it, publish a book, educate the rest of us on it. Become the expert, and make a decent living and a name for yourself. And it would help the rest of us, because we need to learn about who we are. So, we come from the 10 tribes of northern Israel, but we actually have members of all the tribes. And the easiest one to identify is the tribe of Benjamin, because they're in Iceland today. Benjamin are the Benjamites are in Iceland today. So that's not a problem to identify. And you can go back to Genesis and you can read the symbolism that Israel gave when he was describing his son's futures and their characters. And you will see the symbolism for the tribe of Benjamin. And you will see the heraldry for Iceland, and you will see it matches. And we know that Ephraim ended up in Great Britain. I believe, now some of my Bible reading brothers think it was Manasseh, and I think Judah's up there too, to a large extent, especially in Scotland. I got a little bit of that in me. I need you to understand that we've been lied to, that we don't have good knowledge base, that the foundations of our thinking are even rotten at this point. Western civilization is being attacked. It's being attacked from the Orient. They've been using these secret societies against us, sadly. And the guys at the lower ends don't even know what's going on at the upper ends. I want you to understand that not all Caucasians would be descendants of Israel, the man. So they wouldn't all be Israelites. And I want you to understand that, I think that all Caucasians would be descendants of Adam, and not Abel, because Abel was murdered, and it appears he was murdered before he could have children, but Seth. So we would be descendants of Adam's son, Seth. I think that we all can claim that, but I don't know that ironclad. I would give it a 99% probability. However, when it comes to Israel and to claim that all Caucasoids are Israelites, that can't be true, not possibly true, because Abram was called out from his people, from Haran, to go to the promised land, to leave his father and to leave all of those polytheistic practices behind and worship just the one God. So not all Caucasians are descendants of Israel the man. And there's a wide diversity among Caucasians. And at this point, we're all mixed on this planet. The Japanese, we know, are a combination of Mongoloid and Caucasoid. It's a very stable type, if you will. I guess we'll call it a phenotype, genotype. It's a stable population and it's homogeneous. And there are benefits to having an homogeneous population. For one, people understand each other better. There's less misunderstandings. There's also a lot less crime, and there's a lot less sociopathy. The United States traditionally ran about 4% rate of sociopathy, meaning 1 every 25 of us was a sociopath. Well, today I think we're running about 7%. But Japan is holding steady at 1.7%. That's all for a sociopath in Japan. So this idea of diversity bringing wealth and riches, I mean, when you breed these contemptuous criminal types, I don't think it's our strength. I think, diversity as it's being celebrated here, meaning the demise of the white people, the demise of Caucasians, I think that's a genocide. I don't think that's true strength. I would estimate that the peak of the Caucasoid population was in approximately 1933, and I'm going to guess that we were about 30% of the world's population. I believe today Caucasoids are down to less than 5% of the world's population. Certainly less than 7%. And so they're genociding us across a long period of time so we won't wake up to it. And you have to remember that Hispanics didn't exist for a long time. The Hispanic idea was, I think in about 1986, that was created by the Census Department. So they didn't even exist. I don't know what they were classified as. Maybe Caucasians. I just don't know. Somebody out there can study that and find out and bring that to bear. I always wanted to run this show and that my audience would educate me, that people would help me, because I thirst for knowledge. I yearn to know. I yearn to know the truth. Well, there's a book by Bertrand Comparet called Your Heritage. It's on my website. You can download it and the accompanying maps for free, and that's givingpsychologyaway.com. Do go there and download those books. Don't just look at them, but download the PDFs and keep them. In there, you'll see Israelite migrations. There's a chapter in there. He takes that directly from the Bible, and there were approximately 3 or 4 invasions of the Assyrians into Israel, and they were they were deporting people out. And there are 3 landmarks in the Old Testament and the Bible mentioned in about 5 passages. Now, that's not a double witness in the Bible. That's a 5 times witness, which means pay attention to this. They want Yahweh, Yeshua, want us to pay attention to this because it's mentioned 5 times in the Bible. I could be wrong on that. If I'm wrong, feel free to correct me in the comments below. But you will see one of those being the Haber. There's a river, there's a port. There's 3 places that are basically at the foothills of the Caucasus Mountains. And that's where the Israelites were deported to. The Assyrians put them between the Medes and themselves as a buffer zone. So they put them in no man's land, if you will, so that if the Medes wanted to attack Assyria, they'd have to take on the Israelites first. So I'll have a lot more to say to that later, but it's time for me to take a break. May Yahweh bless. Share this video.